We are live.
Okay. Hey, hello all. Welcome to another episode of AI on the Edge. I'm Amar. I'm the founder CEO of Protecto. I'm thrilled to introduce Anirban Nandi, Vice President of AI and Data at Rakuten India. With over 18 years of experience, he has led some transformative AI initiatives across industries, scaling teams, and building cutting-edge solutions. Anirban has been recognized as the top 10 AI leaders in the APAC region. He is very passionate about advocating explainable and responsible AI. He has even written a book on AI explainability. Today, he will share some of his hard earned lessons from his journey of scaling enterprise AI and building impactful analytical AI products. With that, I'll let Anirban introduce himself. Anirban will tell a little bit about yourself, your journey, and we can start from there. Then we'll go into the main topic scaling enterprise AI.
All right. First of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Amar, for inviting me to this podcast. You have already done a fantastic job in giving an extremely elaborate introduction about myself. I don't think I deserve one like that, but thank you once again for that introduction. I have close to around 2 decades of experience. Started my journey with US multi-channel retailer Target. Spent the first 8 years developing a lot of back then it was analytics, then data sciences, and now the AI word is pretty common. But I started my journey in analytics, moved to data sciences, building recommender systems, search classifiers, did a lot of work on inventory management, pricing, customer analytics. Then was hired as one of the founding members of Landmark Group, which is a Middle Eastern conglomerate. Set up this team, worked closely with the different CEOs, drove business impact through their customer analytics, again, assortment localization, pricing. And over the last 5 years, I've been associated with Rakuten, again, build the team for Rakuten India grounds up. Rakuten is a conglomerate, so I do work
Yeah,
across commerce, around the entire fintech umbrella, which is banks, cards, insurance, securities, pay, telco, media, entertainment, and so on and so forth. So glad to be
awesome.
part of this
Uh,
podcast.
That's fantastic, Anirban. That journey itself is very interesting. We can start with just that part, which is scaling enterprise AI, right? So when we say scaling enterprise AI, we meet variety of customers today, right? The customers, some are small, some are really advanced, some are transitioning or adding generative AI to the existing AI workloads they have. Some are they haven't done any AI and they're starting fresh in Gen AI, right? And one thing common is most of the people have done some analytical pipelines, right? So, they have built something on Databricks or Snowflake or some analytics in their existing enterprise systems, but they want to add AI to it, right? So this scaling process, we hear different stories. Some are, hey, we had been dealing with structured data when it comes to analytics. Here we are doing a lot more unstructured text. So the scaling has to be thought completely different. Here we are in the analytical world, we were building very pointed questions and answers. In the new world, AI is all about open-ended questions. Hey, let conversational questions. So it has to be different. What is your viewpoint in scaling enterprise AI? In this spectrum of, yeah, I have analytics, I'm adding AI, I've traditionally done AI, I'm adding Gen AI, I have done everything in Gen AI, I'm scaling. So if you can give your perspective on the scaling AI, enterprise AI, that'll be great.
Thank you, Amar. I think it's a fantastic way to start the podcast. For me, scaling enterprise AI is fundamentally different from building analytical tools.
Mhm.
While analytics is about providing information to support decision making, enterprise AI is about augmenting or automating those decisions.
Mhm.
And this shift requires changes not just in tech, but also in how businesses operate, prioritize, and also collaborate. Some of the lessons learned from my own journey, let me share it with all of you.
Mhm.
I think it's very, very important to start with the business value, not with the technology.
That's so true.
Many AI projects, many AI and recently Gen AI projects fail because they start with the model development,
Mhm.
not with a clear business problem in mind. Successful scales come from solving core pain points, be it in the customer experience, operation, or decision making. That's number one.
Okay.
Prototypes are not equal to production scale systems.
Oh, true.
A working POC or a pilot does not mean you are ready for scale.
Absolutely.
Scaling needs robustness, reproducibility, latency control, governance, observability, and stakeholder trust. You name it.
Yeah,
All of which are typically not covered in the pilot phase.
true.
Data maturity is a prerequisite as well. You can't scale AI without scalable data architectures. That includes your unified data models, version control data sets, governed access policies, and consistency across environments.
Mm.
I would also say think platforms, not point solutions. Enterprises that actually win with AI don't build 10 separate models for 10 different problems. They
Mm.
build shared capabilities, reusable components, APIs, embeddings, prompt libraries, so that the teams can reuse all of them and innovate faster. Couple of more things that's coming on top of my mind. I think we have to treat AI like a product.
Mm.
Successful scaling requires a mindset shift as well. I'd rather say it that way. AI is not a one-time delivery. It's a living
True.
system that needs maintenance, feedback loops, user-centric design. And finally, I would say measure impact, not just the model accuracy, which a lot of AI engineers and data scientists mistake. Precision, recall, blue scores are all good. They are useful.
Mm.
But the
Yeah.
true success metrics is in the business value. Did it save time, increase your revenue, increase your bottom line, increase conversions, reduce churn? These are the metrics to be measured. I think from from scaling enterprise AI, I think one of the things that I'd say at the very end is you don't scale AI by building more models. You scale by building more shared capabilities around it. That's my point of view.
This is fantastic. I can go into any of those individual points. It can be a podcast by itself. Let me ask a couple of follow-up questions. On the POC to production, you said, hey, POC, we have to, you don't think much. Pilots are simple, but when you go to production, you have the complexity of compliance, explainability, all those ROI and everything, latency, things like that. So if I connect to your first point, you said start with the business value, right? Once you have the business value in this case, let's say business agrees, hey, you're increasing productivity, this is great. Then how would you typically advise people think from POC to production? Hey, should I build a small prototype to get the business buy-in, or sell the overall vision, get the buy-in, then build the tool, right? People are trying all kind of experimentation today. So, your advice is start with business, but I want to double click on that a little bit more. How would you start a POC and take it to production? A little bit more details on that. Yeah.
Sure. Like I said, so we always start with the business value, not with the
Yeah.
technology. Once you understand the business value, you then move into a small POC. I would rather call it an MVP, not just a
Mm.
POC. Okay.
Okay.
Because
Good.
MVPs are easily implementable in an experimentation framework. And the speed at which the world of AI and data is moving right now, you
Mm.
need to have a fast experimentation framework where you implement the MVP. You have a business value already in mind. Obviously, you cannot achieve that business value in one goal through an MVP.
True.
So you use the fast experimentation framework to see how much of that share of the business value actually between your budgeted versus your forecasted, okay, that you are able to gain from a business standpoint. If you are able to drive a positive delta on the business value, which is
Sure.
towards that eventual goal of the larger business, solving for the larger business pain point, then you move to that. But at the bottom of this fast experimentation framework, yes, not all MVPs will work.
Mm.
We have to
Yes.
be cognizant about that fact. Not
Mm.
even when you move from a POC to an MVP, not all of them will work. But
Right.
having that fast experimentation framework where you know, okay, this is working versus this is not in a real life scenario is very, very important. Otherwise, you're just stuck with some assumptions that you have made. And then as AI matures, you end up saying that, okay, no, in the next, by the time we experimented, the world has moved ahead. This experimentation failed because the world has moved on. That cannot be the scenario.
Okay. So you touched on a point saying that, hey, start with that MVP. Don't think of a pilot. MVP is a minimum viable product. So as a product, people should be able to use it. There might be a lot of features missing, but it's a MVP. People can still use it, extract some value. This may not be the full budgeted what we are thinking we'll get, but steps we can show to our team, show to the stakeholders. Hey, if we achieve 30% improvement in the MVP, we are showing 10% improvement or 30% improvement on one segment, and we will add more segments or more features as we go to the 30%, which is the full vision. Fantastic framework. So think, not think pilot, think MVP. MVPs are usable, right? Not like pilots, which are not usable. MVPs are usable. It also tied to the same business goal, but it is a very smaller forecasted business goal to the larger budget. Fantastic frame, Anirban. So
And
I'll double click on,
just to
yeah.
clarify the pilot versus MVP, the reason why
Yeah.
I'm more focused on MVPs, which
Mm.
is a minimum viable product, is components of the MVPs are reusable in your
Right.
next MVP. Okay.
Right. Right.
Pilots are built in a very ad hoc manner.
Oh, yeah. So true.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there has to be a minimum element of engineering capabilities that needs to come along with your AI product or your AI
Yeah.
solution.
Makes
Pilots do not
sense.
have it, built in a very ad hoc manner. So that's why I'm more focused on the MVP.
And that also helps in your fast experimentation, which you want to enable, right? Change something, change that component, but the base layer, you can take it. If it works, you can take
Mhm.
it and build more products or more areas you can explore. That's great. Now, let's take, you touched on this point, but I'll double click on this one. Uh, So when you say you're operationalizing it, it is not about just building an AI model or AI application. Your data pipeline has to be in place. Your organization structure has to be in place. All these things, some of the things you mentioned. Let's take with the data to start with. Uh, how would you think about organizations like Rakuten or your previous organization or the conversations you're having? How are people thinking about scaling data? Is it, bad data? Of course, bad outcomes. But how do you think about what are the basic components you should think about when you think of a data for AI at enterprise scale?
I think we should all, at the end of the day, AI works. See, all the great foundational models that have been built are built on a very solid foundation of data. So, operationalizing data across your business units within an enterprise is a sure shot thing. Okay.
Mm.
In my point of view, scaling AI means moving from siloed use cases to enterprise-wise adoption, which also requires a foundational rethink of the entire data operations within the organizations. There are certain key principles that are top of my mind, which I wanted to share.
That'd be great.
I think it is important that you start with a unified data foundation. You implement a central semantic layer to standardize entities like customer, products, clickstream data across your different views. It could vary from enterprise to enterprise. However, this enabled AI applications like personalization, this would enable AI applications like personalization, fraud detection, merchant
Mhm.
optimization to share features and metadata more efficiently. The second one is data access governance. I think data access governance is very, very important. It has to be role based access,
Yeah.
fine grained controls, and there has to be enough audit trails. For a lot of our GenAI tools, we actually use user level sandboxing so that we can differentiate between the same product. What a store manager sees versus what a marketing head sees is very, very different. Um, specifically in the specifically in the generative AI space, I think token filtering, PII handling
Yeah.
in very, very important. Large models, LLMs are generally very hungry. They can
Yeah.
easily leak sensitive data. So you have to embed PII masking, token preprocessors, and hallucination filters into your LLM agents.
Okay.
Horizontal platforms, but with
Mm.
vertical flexibility. While you
Okay.
had one core GenAI engine, we expose modular APIs for use in the different solutions. Think of it as one core with many faces, I would say. And
Uh,
Finally, one more point. I think
Sure.
observability and feedback loops are very, very important.
Mm.
You can't fix what you can't see, actually.
True. So true.
You are invested early in generative AI eval frameworks like quality scoring, user feedback, prompt effectiveness. You should be able to monitor drift and optimize responses continuously. And
Okay.
finally, one thing which has been spoken about a lot, which is security and compliance by design. You need to have
Right.
multi-region compliance. You need to understand the embedding risk, ethic teams in the dev cycles. That would be my thought process around operationalizing data across the business units.
This fantastic, broad overview, Anirban. So we talked about a bit about hey, getting the data pipelines. Don't think siloed. AI is about joining data from different sources, giving new insights, right? Enabling productivity across organizations. So bring it in a unified way and
Mhm.
standardized way, so that we do not create more confusion and more inaccuracies on top of the LLM variability. You will add more. That is another point. Fantastic point you mentioned. And you also a little bit touched upon sandboxing, limiting access controls so that it can be audited, controlled, so that the access data doesn't, it can be governed better in AI. And lastly, you touched a lot about operationalizing it. When you or observability and operationalizing it. In the observability space, you talked a bit about, hey, we should be able to see the model drift over a period of time, the prompt effectiveness, things like those. Uh, when you're building an MVP, right? So let's say you would start with, hey, I need all these components, or I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to think about drift and later on, but I'm going to think about only the effectiveness now. Is there a way to think about MVP in this context, Anirban?
Yes, I don't think you need to boil the ocean for an MVP.
No.
However, when you're building MVP one,
Yeah.
you don't need all the components, and that's why I keep stressing that you should be building MVPs over a period of time. So when you move from MVP one, you don't need to have all the components. Maybe observability from an observability standpoint, maybe just the model drift is good enough.
Mhm.
Okay, or the response or the prompt security, because
Right.
there's a lot of people who are trying to get into your systems in the wrong way
Absolutely.
through through the prompting, the different prompt engineering techniques, right? I don't want to go into the details of that, but maybe that security layer on your prompting is what you want. But
Mm.
imagine, because it's an MVP, now you have an engineered component around security of your um, prompts. So you
Right.
know on a real-time basis when somebody is prompting in, let's say, one of your concierge, you know that somebody is trying to do something which is not ethical in nature, right?
Right.
Now that you have built in this, when you move to MVP2,
Mhm.
you have this component which becomes reusable.
True.
Then you can build the additional component, let's say hallucination at that
Right.
point of time. So over a period, when you are developing successful MVPs, putting them, some of them become successful, some of them goes into production, some of them does not. But the components within this central
True.
COE team is actually usable across
Yeah.
the company. That's how you
Makes sense.
go from maturity, from a medium maturity to a very high maturity.
Fantastic.
Otherwise, you would be stuck with individual teams reinventing the wheel, building these components or features every time. And the scalability is never attained. You just keep saying that, okay, let's grow the team because I have to build two new MVPs. Let me add X number of new people in the team to actually support this MVP.
Yeah. Fits well with your first point of creating MVP, multiple MVPs. In the process, build your capabilities also. Some components will work, use it for the next MVP. Some components won't work, drop it, build something for the new MVP. That's fantastic. Now, let's go into the third part of our discussion, which is the one of the things I hear from our customers is AI adoption in some parts of the organization, it's moving really fast, like coding, development, things like that. In business, there are a lot of interest. Individual tools, ChatGPT like tools are being used, but there's a lot of uncertainty or a lot of risk in implementing an AI because of organizational structure, alignment, things like that. How do you think about organizational alignment, talent, stakeholder alignment when it comes to scaling enterprise AI?
Fantastic question. Culture is extremely crucial. Okay.
Mhm.
And let me answer your question in three different parts. First,
Ah,
my personal viewpoint on how a new age org design for an AI team should look like. Okay. I think
mhm,
it's time that we move a bit from the centralized to the federated teams. If you are early in the journey, a centralized AI team helps sets guardrails. But
mhm.
to scale, I think you need to embed AI pods within the business unit, like
Ah,
marketing, ops, finance, with
makes
shared tools
sense.
but local ownership.
Makes sense.
Another concept could potentially be, which I've seen some success, is dual reporting models.
Mhm,
AI leads embedded in BU reported both to the functional head as well as the central AI leadership. So you report both to the functional head of the marketing team and the central AI leadership. This actually helps ensure alignment without losing agility at all.
mhm.
And finally, from an org design standpoint, I think shared KPIs, not just shared resources. Uh, you create mission-based squads with common goals. Example could be uplift of revenue by X% rather than siloed delivery metrics, which could be like, let's increase new customers, reduce churn, and all of that. So if the goal is, let's say, increase revenue by X%, this mission-based squad can deliver to this uh, entire eventual goal. Now, from a talent standpoint, I think it's important to have hybrid profiles.
Mhm,
Right now, hybrid profiles are gold mines. AI savvy PMs,
mhm.
domain aware data scientists, and prompt engineers who understands both LLM behavior as well as the business context. So a good mix of tech and business is gold right now.
Sounds
Upskilling as
good.
you
Mm,
need to train all your cross-functional teams on GenAI basics. Over the last 3 to 4 years, or rather 3 years, this is the first time AI has been democratized, and you have
Yeah,
to take advantage of the democratized AI within across your different cross-functional teams. If you look a decade back when I started my career, analytics, data sciences, data engineering, machine learning, deep learning, AI was all very restricted to this group of people who knew this domain. But
exactly.
now, with tools like Claude, Gemini, GPT, everybody can have hands-on experience
Absolutely.
and get the impact of AI.
Absolutely.
And I would say not the most crucial one, but depending on the journey that we are in right now, and depending
Mm,
on the business that you operate, you also need to hire ethicists, not just engineers. It is important to scale AI responsibly.
mhm.
You need to have components of data governance and policy specialists in your AI team to mitigate future risks.
Sounds good. Sounds
And
good.
the final component, which was around stakeholder alignment, I think it's very important to have an education mindset, tool second mindset. Education first, tool second. Uh, Potentially, you can run C-suite workshops explaining
Mhm.
what I can do and what it cannot do. It builds both the trust and excitement while ensure that there are certain restrictions on its capabilities as well.
Yeah. Th-
Uh, uh, and finally, one last point. I think it's a continuous communication loop. You do regular demos, you show business impact reports. You also do like story driven updates that maintain buy-in at every level. Sometimes what happens, the mistake that we do sometimes is during the project kickoff, we get the buy-in, but we don't keep our stakeholders informed
Farm.
during the course of our sprint, the implementation, the impact, all of that. Um,
Yeah.
Finally, I would say AI success is 20% algorithm and
Mhm.
80% alignment. A lot of people might disagree with me. That's what my experience has been, that it's not so much 20% algorithm and 80% alignment communication and that
Yeah.
entire umbrella of everything else.
And that's a very interesting point, Anirban. So what you're saying is, don't think traditionally AI had been very centralized, bunch of data scientists, model builders, building some stochastic models, explaining data and things like that. What you're saying is, hey, AI is democratized now, and everybody can learn, improve. You cannot build an LLM, but how to use an LLM, prompt engineering, right, can be learned. So democratize it and build it along with the business unit so that it can move fast, right? As the question comes from the business, this team can quickly act and do it. Still have a horizontal layer so that common best practice of what is data governance, responsible AI, privacy, security goes across the organization, but they move at the speed of the business. That's a very fantastic point. Second interesting point you mentioned is, hey, this shared KPIs, not an AI engineer should think I shipped a product, I'm shipping this model, I'm reducing this thing. You have to think in the business goals, right? If the business goal is met, your project has failed, right? So you have to think business terms. So you're more aligned to the business and outcomes. These are fantastic points, Anirban. This is very good insights. We have only few minutes left, so I'll just stop here. This has been a very fantastic conversation. We touched many things from scaling enterprise AI, from a data point of view, from AI, and now team point of view. And one of the things you mentioned is alignment across the organization is 80%. I just want to go back to that point. We have only 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When you say that, what do people generally do? Do they focus too much on data, the techniques, the technology, and spend 80% effort on that, 20% on alignment, and the project fails? Or what is the common mistakes people do there?
See, don't take me in the truest sense when I said 20% is on AI and 80% is on alignment. This is just
Right.
something that
Yeah, yeah. Just to
I think the bigger
provocative. Right.
portion is definitely on the alignment side. Okay.
Right. Right.
Uh, I think, yes, a lot of time is actually spent on getting the right data, building the model, and sometimes not solving for the right pain point.
Mhm.
Business would adopt AI or any other technology which is solving a pain point which is right now,
Yeah, makes
because
sense.
they have goals to meet. The business always runs on goals to meet, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, just like we have our KPIs, the business also has its own KPIs. And if we are enabling the business to achieve the KPI faster with that alignment, I think the implementation is a lot easier. Sometimes we spend a lot of time on either on the data side, building the platforms for the data, or on the algorithm side, eventually looking at the accuracies, and end up solving a problem which is not the priority
Aligned.
zero, the priority one for the business. We might be
Makes sense.
solving a problem which will be priority three and priority four. That's where the AI implementation fails, because that's
Mhm.
not topmost priority.
Yeah.
The AI implementation does not happen with a lot of speed. Our data, our models gets a little bit exhaustive as well, and therefore at the end of the day the business impact from the AI is not very good. So
Yeah.
my final recommendation would be solve for the P0 P1 problems of the business using
Makes
the
sense.
data and the AI technologies, and at the heart of it all I would say that scale, if you have to scale AI, it's not a tech challenge, it's a business transformation journey. They need to see the benefits.
Absolutely.
It requires clarity of purpose, alignment of people, and disciplined execution across the board. Sometimes we as AI people are not very disciplined as well, to be very, very honest.
Okay.
In my experience over the last few decades, I have seen the
Yeah.
most successful organizations are the ones that treat AI not as a tool, but a strategic capability that evolves with the business. Having
Okay.
said that, the speed at which the AI is moving, there are times where the AI teams have to be at the forefront to introduce the new AI technologies because the business.
Capabilities. Yeah, exactly. So you educate the business so that they know what are the possibilities. Then they can imagine how to use that capability within their organization, and you can make it happen. This is a lot of great insights, Anirban. I'll try to summarize in a once we are done with the podcast. I'll summarize it in a blog post and with this one that follows this one. So thank you again. I know you had a very busy schedule. You took a half an hour to come and talk to us about the scaling AI and your lessons. This has been very insightful. I look forward to having you again in the future. And thank you. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Amar. The pleasure is all mine, and it was great interacting with you. Very interesting questions. I hope the audience could benefit something at least from our discussion about scaling enterprise AI.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you.
once again. Have a good
Thank you.
day. Bye bye. Bye bye.